Today I want to show you how to make a walrus. They're so fun to look at. There's so many unique characteristics in their shape and their wrinkles. As unappealing as they are very appealing. So anyway, we're going to start with a lump of clay. I'm going to kind of roll it around a little bit in the palm of my hands just to get some of the creases and wrinkles out. And the idea when I do a walrus is I want it to look like a carrot shape. If you can see the slimming and tapering down to the peak, it's broader at the top. So I call that my carrot shape. So I'm going to do that with this character right here. So I've got it narrower at the tail end and nice and bulgy and fat at the front end. So I'm going to save some of this clay for the head. Okay, bring it up a little bit, but this is all too thick, so we can't leave things thick when you're working with earthenware clay that's going to get fired in the kiln. It has to be hollowed out so that if there's any air pockets in there, we're popping the air pockets by hollowing it out. And if it's thick, the moisture can get trapped in there, and that also could cause it to blow up in the kiln. So I'm sticking my fingers in here and I'm turning this into kind of a strangely shaped pinch pot just to thin the walls and hollow out the shape. There we go. So now we still have the bulbous body and the tail tapering down in the end. And I'm not at all worried about the wrinkles because we are going to add a bunch of wrinkles. Okay, so I'm going to take the needle tool, and I'll show you what I mean by adding the wrinkles. I'm just going to take the needle tool and use the needle, the long straight needle, to add some of the wrinkles that you see on a walrus. And they're not necessarily in a pattern of any sort. I'm just randomly putting lines in the body of the walrus. And there's more creases where the head lifts up back in the back of the neck. And then there seem to be less wrinkles as it tapers out to the tail. I'll extend that a little bit. Okay, so now we'll make this little walrus a little mate. Okay, so we could go anywhere. Let's do this funny little mustache that it has. I love the big bulgy mustache. So I just take a piece of clay, kind of size it up, and pinch it, and shape it, compress it, bring it down to a peak at each end, and let it be kind of like half a circle or kind of a rainbow shape. And then we're going to put that on in the front of the head, leaving room for the eyes. Okay, so I'm going to scratch and wet that on. Okay, scratch and wet the mustache. I might have made this mustache a little big, but we'll see in the end. Who knows? Maybe it'll be perfect. And then I'm going to rough it up and add all the whiskers that they have. Their nostrils kind of fade into the mustache, but I'm going to use the end of a paintbrush handle to just kind of put those two little tiny marks in there. Okay? And then we'll make the eyeballs. So what I noticed about walrus eyes is that they bulge around the eyeball. It's kind of a bulge and a wrinkle. And so what I do to shape that is I make a hole with the end of a tool, using a paintbrush handle in this case. And then I'm going to make a tiny little bead, flatten it slightly, scratch and wet it on there. Scratch and wet it on there. Same thing for the other side, and scratch and wet it. Go. And remake that hole. we go. And put tiny, 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 tiny amount of clay in there. Roll it out to be the eyeball. It's so tiny that I'm using my needle tool to put it in to the eye socket. Oops. There we go. I'll do that again. So I use my needle tool to dip in my water, so I put a little drip of water in there, and while I did that I scratched a tiny bit, and then I'm going to put the eyeball in there. Okay, so there we go. And I'm looking up a little bit so that the tusks, we want there to be enough room for them. Roll it out. A long pointy tooth with a peak at the end. Let's see how that looks. Roll out another one. Have a peak at one end. Make sure it's similar to the first one I made. Looks a little smaller. That looks similar. That's good. Okay, yeah, that looks good, so I'll scratch and wet those on. Compress it gently without distorting and warping it. A lot of times when working with thin pieces of clay, if you press too hard, you make it a thin spot and then it's way fragile. So best is to apply it with a gentleness. Looking all right. Okay, and then the fins or flippers. Not sure what they are, to be honest. I'm just taking my fingers. See how I'm making that kind of a triangular shape, but not an extreme triangle? I don't want to make sharp ends, but we want the flippers to have those 3 rounded points. I'm going to use the straight of the needle to press in and create those indentations. And scratch and wet them on as well. There we go. Is he really pulling enough? Oh yeah. How is it that he looks like somebody's grandpa? I don't know. Whiskers and that mustache. Yeah. There we go. Bring that out. And we'll make 2 more flippers for the end, again with that triangle. Just kind of rounding the edges first. There we go again with the triangle. The lines with the needle tool. I love using the straight line of a needle tool to create detail in things. It's so handy. I can never draw a straight line very cleanly. I am very messy about drawing straight lines, so laying the tool down to create a straight line has been key for a lot of the detail in the pieces that I do. Oh, yeah, he looks happy. Thanks for watching.